In conflict, most of us do one of the two things. We either shut down, completely went silent, or we explode, become very aggressive. And either way, it makes us feel really bad afterwards. Today, I'm going to show you a third option, one that you can present your thoughts and need in a calm, clear way and actually gets you heard. If we look at any kind of relationship in our life, no matter it's friendship, it's work relationship, marital relationship, parent-child relationship, differences always exist. As long as there are two people have two different brains, we will disagree on things. So conflict is an inevitable part of life. As long as you exist, as long as you have a relationship with someone, you are going to have some kind of conflict. And I truly believe, based on how people deal with conflict, you can see how emotionally mature and intelligent someone actually is. And this is something that can be trained. It doesn't come naturally for most of us. In intimate relationship, we talk about constructive conflict and destructive conflict. We have the consensus that conflict is a component in marriage and any intimate relationship. In fact, if you don't have any conflict, that is a red flag. So when we do have conflict, we see couples resolve conflict in different way. Sometimes after a conflict, they feel more distant from each other. Versus for other couple, when they have a conflict, they were able to sit down, express their needs and thought, and at the end, they feel even closer to each other. That is a constructive conflict. Imagine if you can turn every conflict in your relationship into constructive conflict. How great will that be? You will have a high level of relationship satisfaction. When you feel good about all aspects of your relationship in your life, you also experience tremendous personal growth. Conflict resolution is an essential skill for any type of relationship and your mental health, personal happiness. Because who can be happy if they have difficulty in their relationship? Now we understand the importance of conflict resolution. Let's talk about how do people usually approach conflict. So I'm going to ask you to reflect back on the time when you had a conflict with someone. It can be with your parents, it can be at work, it can be with your partner. What did you do in those moments? Most of us choose to be quiet or walk away. Another one is we choose to challenge. We aggressively present our point of view and we can feel ourselves irritated, agitated, and also don't feel good because you don't want to present that way in front of anyone. The two-way, avoidant, aggressive, are now healthy, but that's just how we learned it. The earliest time you observe a conflict, most likely, is from your parents. So depend on what you observed in your early childhood of how your parents resolve conflict. You are going to copy the exact way they resolve conflict and then use it in your adult life. For me, I've never actually seen my parents argue once in front of me. It seems like I don't know if they have any conflict. Up until when I was 12, they suddenly got divorced. So that was really surprising to me. But looking back, I know based on the fact that I never observed my parents having conflict, that means they don't address the conflict, they hide it. Their strategy is more likely to run away. That is exactly what I did in my adult relationship. Whenever I had a conflict with a boyfriend, with an intimate partner, my first reaction is usually shut down. I would go quiet. I would cry so much that I feel like I completely lost my train of thoughts. I could not clearly express myself, which is very different from normally how I am. And now I know that it's because I'm out of my window tolerance. I don't feel regulated. I feel emotionally overwhelmed, and I cannot express myself. This is actually an avoidant approach in conflict resolution. And because the other person do not really understand what is going on in your mind, you cannot express yourself. So it doesn't really lead to an outcome of solution in a conflict situation. And throughout all these years, I've learned many ways to resolve conflict. And one thing that I find most helpful that I'm still using right now is the Dear Men method. This is what we're going to focus in on today. The third option, that's neither aggressive nor passive. Dear Men is an acronym of all the steps in being assertive in the communication. And it stands for describe, express, assert, reinforce, mindful, appear, and negotiate. So let's break it down a little bit more. The history of Dear Men is actually from DBT. DBT is called a Dialectical Behavior Therapy. It is developed in the 1980s by American psychologist Marsha Linehan. She sees a lot of clients who has a lot of big emotion. They're constantly feeling dysregulated. They constantly feel overwhelmed. Emotion just comes to them like wave. And oftentimes these clients have a borderline personality disorder diagnosis, or they are chronically suicidal. So these are the people who are really, really suffering, and it's difficult for them to think straight in a logic way. For a long time, the gold standard of modern psychotherapy is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Briefly described, CBT helps you to recognize that a lot of your thought patterns are not rational. We tend to say, you always do that, you never do that, I will never be able to be successful, and I will either be successful or fail. These are all the distorted cognition, meaning they're not true, they're not rational. CBT helps us to see the distorted pattern in our thoughts and rewrite it into a more objective and rational way so that we will feel better. But what Marsha observed is when you are in a very distressed state, CBT is not enough. Therefore, she developed DBT. Important component of the DBT include emotional regulation, distress tolerance. How do you feel grounded, regulated? Get yourself out of that fight or flight or freeze or die mode and come back to being centered, grounded, so you can think straight. And the other part of it is interpersonal communication. How do we communicate to other people about our need in a way that's clear, confident, and other people can accept? So that is a history of DBT. Endearment is one of the methods in DBT that help us to be more assertive. Now, it is a technique developed from treating borderline personality disorder, but it doesn't mean that you need to have borderline to use it. A lot of my clients with interpersonal relationship issue or work relationship issue will come to me and then ask, how should I talk about my need in a way that's not aggressive, that doesn't blow up the conversation? Endearment is oftentimes a very good solution. So let's look at endearment closer, step by step. The first step of endearment is describe. What you are going to do is you're going to describe the situation as objective as possible. I like to think about I am a scientist. For example, you are going to say, in the last 5 days, you did this X number of times, or you said that Y number of times. See, you are not saying you always do that, you never do that. Avoiding using those very generalized and vague terms. Instead, we put a number on there, so it's pure fact. And the next step in endearment is E, which stands for express. You are going to express your feeling and thought about the situation using I statement. So the focus here is you are going to start every sentence with I. I feel this way. I think this. Instead of saying, I feel you are attacking me, you can say, I feel vulnerable and being attacked. That is very different, because if I say, I feel you are doing something, that is blaming. That is not really talking about your feeling. So the second step is express using I statement. And then the third part is A, stands for assert. We are going to assert our needs, what I want or what I don't want, very clearly. For example, I want you to give me a hug at the end of the day when I come back. Don't want you to talk to me when your voice is loud and you feel out of control. Very clear, very direct, and express what you want from the other person. And step number 4 is R, which stands for reinforce. We are going to show the other person that if you are doing what I ask you to do, there is some positive outcome. A positive outcome can simply be, it's great for our relationship. The positive outcome can also be, if you do that to me, I will do this to you. Basically, you want to show it's a win-win situation. And the next step is M, stand for being mindful. This is an overall attitude. When you are going in that situation, you want to make sure you stay on track. You stay on expressing that single incident, what your need in that single incident, without getting distracted. A very common thing in conflict is we can think about 5 things we feel unhappy about this person in this situation. You start from event 1 and you start to jump to 2 and go to 3 and come back to 1. And this creates a lot of chaos and make the conflict even bigger. But instead, what we want to do is just focusing on one thing at a time. So be mindful of how you are feeling, how you are presenting, and also be mindful of staying on task. Be mindful also means do not react when the other person is trying to divert you from the subject. If they try to threaten you, attack you, you are just going to keep talking about your dear man. That's the only focus in that conversation. The next step is A, appear. We want to appear calm and confident. You are going to open your shoulder, relax your body, and keep an open posture. When people are across your arm, someone look at this way, it usually signals people are being distant. Instead, if you have an open palm position, that your arm naturally relaxed, this is usually a position that signals the other person this is a safe conversation. I'm just here so that we can have a conversation instead of I'm here to attack you or threaten you. Then the last step is negotiate. This is the attitude of I am open to meet in the middle. I talked about my needs, and I like to hear about your thought and your needs, whether you think you're able to meet my needs or whether you think there is another better way to approach this. It's basically the attitude of I am willing to compromise. And where you are showing the attitude willing to compromise, more likely the other person will show the same. I'll give you a brief example of how I used Dear Man in my most recent conflict with my husband. The scenario is my husband was out of the country for 7 weeks, so I was living alone for 7 weeks, and he was focusing on work. After he came back, he still maintained this high working pace. Most of the time he's working on his computer, trying to code, and even when we have the time together late at night, he would still go to his computer and code. And I feel upset about it. So after thinking about it for a while, I decided to use Dear Man to talk to him. So this is what I did. I walked to him and I said, I want to talk to you. So we sat down at the kitchen table and I make sure my voice is calm and slow, not showing any agitation, and my facial expression is calm at the same time. I described the situation first. I said, you've been working a lot. In the last 7 days, we didn't have a single day completely off work. Last night when we were watching a movie at 10-11 p.m., you still went to check on your computer whenever you get a chance. So this is my way of describing the situation. I give a very concrete number. And then I express my feeling. I said, I feel disconnected. I want more time with you, the time that you are being present with me, instead of you getting distracted by something else. So this is my thought and my feeling. Then I'll go to the next step, assert. I asked for my need. I said I want us to have more quality time with each other. And when we are together relaxing, I want us to just focus on us instead of getting distracted by the computer or cell phone. So this is my request. Assert and reinforce because it's pretty obvious this is something that's great for a relationship. There is a consensus of I'm talking about this because I want to better our relationship, and he's on the same page. And then I went to the last step, negotiate. I said to him, what do you think? Do you think that's reasonable? Am I asking too much? And then he told me about his perspective, and he said, I think all of these is valid. I simply don't know what to do because the job required me to work a lot, and I feel the pressure to perform. So as you can see, we are starting to make some of the compromise, starting to find out some solution and meet each other in the middle. So next thing I said is, so this is what I think. I'm okay with working 6 days a week, but every night after 8 p.m., I want us to both close our computer and just watch TV or just have some time for us. I want you and also I to be fully present with each other. Do you think that's doable? And he said yes. So this conversation turns out to be a very simple conversation, right? I presented everything in a very clear way. And it's easy to do because I already have in my mind what I want from him. And it's not a vague thing of, I want you to pay more attention to me. It is in what scenario, at what time, or when I react what way. I want you to pay attention to me in what way. Right? I specifically said, after 8 p.m., I want us to focus on each other and not look at computer. So this becomes very easily acceptable. And also the way I present it is, I wasn't presenting in a happy way because I was upset, but I wasn't being aggressive or distant either. I let myself be vulnerable and at the same time come to him in a way that's very collaborative. So this kind of communication style takes a lot of practice. I've trained myself again and again. And what I found most helpful is you do not want to come up with the idea on the scene, because maybe you're already dysregulated. It's really hard to have a clear thought of what to say, step 1, 2, 3, and 4. What I find the most helpful is you're going to look at a worksheet, the Dear Man method, and steps. And then you're going to briefly write down or just form it in your mind. What are you going to say? Especially the first 3 steps, I think is the most important. And after you write your describe, you express your thoughts and emotion, assert your need, then you are going to ground yourself. You are going to make sure you do some nice deep breathing, do some guided meditation to calm down, and then approach the person and then ask them to sit down face to face with you to talk about it. And it gives you such a good feeling when you know you're able to do it and when you're able to resolve the conflict successfully. And it's also model good conflict resolution to the other person. So they respect you more and you feel better about your relationship because you left the door open. You allow them to negotiate, to talk to you about their needs. Hope you can try it in your life in any conflict that you have. And remember, you can start small. You don't have to remember all the 7 steps in endearment. Just focusing on 1 or 2, replay it in your mind, replay the script, write it down, and then approach the conflict. And let me know in the comment how it goes with your assertive communication style. And remember, assertive is not aggressive. It is to present what you need in a way that's respectful and acceptable to the other person too. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I release and have weekly content on anxiety, immigrant mental health, and for those of you who live in between cultures. Thank you for watching the video, and I look forward to see you in the next one.